What happens when a lifelong wildlife conservationist sits across from a talk show host famous for her sharp tongue? You're about to see one of the most explosive on-air confrontations The View has ever broadcast. Robert Irwin of the legendary Steve Irwin walked onto the set, expecting a warm conversation about his latest conservation project. Instead, he stepped straight into a verbal minefield that left the audience gasping. The co-hosts scrambling and social media in full meltdown. Robert settles onto the couch, smiling, ready to talk about his family's massive new initiative to protect crocodile habitats in northern Australia. The co-hosts pepper him with friendly questions about the sanctuary, his father's legacy, the mission he's been carrying forward since childhood. Everything is smooth, until Joy leans forward with that look. "Robert, I have to ask something that's been bothering me," she begins. "You travel the world talking about saving animals, but isn't it all a bit performative? Your family has made millions putting animals on television." The studio goes silent. Robert's smile fades, but his posture stays steady. "Joy, with all due respect," he replies calmly, "my family has never exploited animals for profit. Every dollar we earn goes back into conservation. We've saved thousands of acres of habitat and protected countless species." Joy waves a dismissive hand. "Sure, but you're still making money off them, aren't you? You're still the face of a brand with merchandise and TV deals. How is that any different from a circus?" The co-hosts squirm. They know this just took a hard turn. Robert leans in, voice firm but controlled. "A circus cages animals for entertainment. We rehabilitate injured wildlife, protect endangered species, fund conservation programs, and educate millions. If you can't see the difference, I'm not sure you've looked into what we do." Joy lets out a short, unfriendly laugh. "Oh, I've looked. I've seen the shows and the cute photo ops. It all looks charming, but where's the real impact? Because from where I sit, it seems like you've built a career on your father's name." The audience audibly gasps. A co-host tries to defend him, but Joy cuts her off. No, let him answer. "Robert, what have you personally accomplished without a camera crew present?" Robert's face reddens not from embarrassment, but from controlled outrage. "You want to know what I've personally accomplished?" he says, voice low and sharp. "I've worked with governments on endangered species legislation. I funded anti-poaching units in Africa. I've been bitten, stung, and nearly killed doing fieldwork most people wouldn't survive a day of. And yes, we use MediaBek. That's how you reach millions of people and raise the resources needed to protect wildlife on a global scale. So, you admit it's about the money, Joy needles. It's about using resources effectively." He snaps back. "Do you know what it costs to buy land for conservation? 2 hire rangers. 2 operate rescue centers. We're talking millions. You don't fund this kind of work with bake sales. You need reach. You need trust. You need a brand." Joy leans back, clearly pleased with the discomfort she's stirring up. "But here's what I don't get," she says. "You say you care about animals, yet you're always handling them on camera, picking them up, moving them around. Isn't that stressful? Isn't that putting your content above their well-being?" For the first time, real anger flashes in Robert's eyes. "Every interaction you see is done under strict ethical guidelines," he says. "We work with veterinarians, behaviorists, wildlife specialists. We never put an animal in harm's way. The animals on our programs are rescues, rehabilitating, ambassador animals, or wild creatures documented with minimal interference. But you're still interfering," Joy insists. "You're still in their space. And if we weren't in their space, documenting their existence." Robert fires back. "People like you wouldn't even know they're disappearing. You want to talk about interference?" Robert's voice sharpened, leaning forward now, fully engaged. "Let's talk about the real interference: habitat destruction, climate change. illegal poaching. Those are the forces killing animals by the thousands every single day. My family's work is about showing people what's at stake and giving them a reason to care enough to do something. Joy shook her head dismissively. I just think there's something troubling about making entertainment out of conservation. It feels exploitative. Robert straightened, his patience gone. You know what I find troubling, Joy? Sitting here in an air-conditioned studio in New York, criticizing people who are actually out in the field doing the hard work while you've probably never spent a single day in a wildlife reserve or seen firsthand what happens when a species disappears. The audience erupted. Some clapped, some gasped. The co-hosts scrambled to regain control. But the momentum was clearly Robert's. Joy's smug expression crumbled into shock. Barely masked, one co-host tried to intervene, suggesting a breath and reset, but Joy cut her off, voice sharp. Excuse me? I've advocated for plenty of causes. You do not get to come on this show and tell me I haven't done anything meaningful. Robert didn't flinch. I'm not saying you haven't advocated for causes. I'm saying you're attacking someone who has dedicated their entire life to conservation from a position of complete comfort. You've never pulled a snake hook at 3 a.m. to rescue a python from floodwaters. You've never had to explain to a community why protecting a crocodile habitat is more important than turning it into profit. You've never held a dying animal in your hands, knowing if you don't raise enough funds, dozens more will die the same way. The studio was electric. Murmurs, nods, and gasps rippled through the crowd. Well, Joy tried to laugh. We can't all be crocodile hunters. Robert's jaw tightened. My father wasn't a hunter. He was a conservationist, calling him or me. A hunter shows exactly how little you understand what we stand for. Hunters kill for sport. We dedicate our lives to keeping animals alive. There's a massive difference, and the fact you just used that word tells me all. I need to know about how seriously you've taken this conversation. The co-hosts exchanged worried glances. One tried to redirect to a project-specific question, but Joy interrupted. No, I want to address this. Robert, you're getting defensive. Deep down, you know there's some truth to what I'm saying. You benefit from animal content. That's just a fact. Robert laughed bitterly. You want to talk about benefiting from content? You're a talk show host. You make a living off controversial opinions and stirring up drama. Should we question whether your advocacy is genuine? Or are you using social issues to boost ratings? That seems fair if we're applying your logic. The audience went wild. Cheers, boos, murmurs. Joy's face reddened. That's completely different, and you know it, she sputtered. Different. Robert's voice rose. You use a platform to push messages. I use a platform to push messages. The difference? My message is about saving species from extinction. Your message today seems to be about tearing down someone trying to do good work. Explain to me how that's different. Joy opened her mouth, then closed it. Opened it again. I'm holding you accountable. That's what journalists do. Robert's eyes narrowed. You are not a journalist, Joy. You're a commentator. There's a difference between holding someone accountable and launching baseless attacks just because it makes for good television. If you actually cared about accountability, you'd have done your homework, Robert said, leaning forward, eyes steady. You'd know our organization is fully transparent with our finances. You'd know we're regularly audited, and that the vast majority of our funding goes directly to conservation programs. But you didn't do that research, did you? You came here with accusations because it makes for a more dramatic segment. One of the co-hosts finally interjected. Robert, I think what Joy is trying to say perhaps clumsily is that there are always questions about how celebrity intersects with activism. It's a fair conversation to have. Robert turned toward her, his tone softening slightly. And it is a conversation I'm happy to have when it's done in good faith. But this, he said, glancing back at Joy, isn't a conversation. You've made accusations. You've implied my work is performative, that I'm exploiting animals, that I'm trading on my father's name. Those aren't questions, they're attacks based on assumptions, not facts. Joy leaned in, a defiant smirk forming. Well, maybe if you weren't so defensive, we could have a real conversation. I am not defensive. Robert shot back, his voice calm but firm. I'm defending my work. There's a difference. When someone spreads false narratives, you have every right to correct them, and that's all I'm doing. You want to talk about the ethics of wildlife media? Fine, let's have that conversation, but let's do it with facts, not your gut. Feeling that something seems exploitative when you haven't even examined what we do. Joy's tone dripped with sarcasm as she leaned forward. Okay then, educate me. Tell me how putting a crocodile on television counts as conservation. Robert took a deep breath, keeping his composure. Putting a crocodile on television. ISNT conservation. It's education. Education builds awareness. Awareness builds public support. Public support builds funding. Funding saves habitats and protects species. That's how it works. That's how you actually make a difference. Do you understand the chain? Robert leaned forward, eyes locked on Joy. Most people will never see a saltwater crocodile in the wild. They'll never understand the role these animals play in their ecosystems. But if I can show them, on television, how incredible these creatures are, how they've survived millions of years, and how human activity now threatens them, suddenly people care. They donate. They vote for environmental protections. They pressure companies to stop destroying habitats. That's how change happens. Joy's tone was sharp, repetitive. But you're still making money off of it. Robert didn't flinch. And doctors make money off healing people. Teachers earn salaries teaching kids. Firefighters are paid to save lives. Are they exploiting anyone? Your argument falls apart the moment you apply it to any other profession. Yes, I make a living doing conservation work. That doesn't make the work any less vital or the impact any less real. Joy shook her head, dismissive. It's not the same thing. Yes, it is, Robert said firmly. You just don't want to admit that you came into this interview with a preconceived notion. And now you're doubling down instead of accepting that maybe, just maybe, you didn't have all the facts. The studio crackled with tension. The co-hosts exchanged anxious glances. The audience buzzed with murmurs, divided. Joy's eyes narrowed. You know what, Robert? I think you're taking this way too personally. It's just a conversation. Robert laughed, disbelief written across his face. Just a conversation. You've spent the last 15 minutes questioning my integrity, my family's legacy, and the legitimacy of my life's work. And now you want to act like this is casual chit-chat. That is not how conversations work. You don't get to throw grenades and then be surprised when someone responds. One co-host attempted a joke to lighten the mood. Silence, the atmosphere, was too charged. I'm allowed to ask tough questions, Joy insisted. That's my job. Tough questions are fine, Robert said, voice steady but intense. There's a difference between asking tough questions and conducting a hostile interrogation. A real tough question would be, how do you balance filming with animal welfare? That's reasonable. What you did was accuse me of exploitation without evidence. Dismiss the entire field of wildlife media as performative and insult my father's memory. That's not journalism. That's mean-spiritedness for ratings. Joy scoffed. Oh, please, don't play the victim. I came on this show to ask hard questions. And I came here to discuss a major initiative that could save an entire ecosystem. Robert shot back. Instead, you turned it into a personal attack because apparently that's more interesting to you than actual environmental issues. That says more about your priorities than mine. Joy's face flushed. You're twisting my words. Oh, I never said you were a bad person. I just questioned the methods. You compared my work to a circus? Robert's voice turned icy. You suggested I was trading on my father's name. You insinuated that everything I do is for profit and attention. Those aren't questions, they're character assassinations. And I will not let you rewrite history because this isn't going the way you planned. Another co-host tried desperately to steer the conversation back. Can we agree conservation is important, and thank you? Robert interrupted, taking a deep breath. We are working to secure over 50,000 acres of crocodile habitat in northern Australia. This land is under threat from development and climate change. Protecting it doesn't just save crocodiles, it safeguards entire ecosystems, hundreds of bird species, fish, plants, and other wildlife. It's a multi-million-dollar project that will take years, but the impact will be lasting. Joy raised her eyebrow. And how are you funding this? Robert met her gaze, unwavering. Through a combination of government grants, private donations, and yes, revenue from our media work and the Australia Zoo, which brings us full circle to your original point. Without the so-called performative media work, Robert said, leaning forward, this project wouldn't exist. The crocodiles you claim I'm exploiting would lose their habitat and eventually vanish. So, tell me, Joy, what matters more? Your philosophical objection to wildlife media or the survival of these species? Joy hesitated, visibly searching for a response that wouldn't make her look foolish. Finally, she muttered, I just think there should be oversight. There is oversight, Robert replied instantly. We have veterinarians on staff. We follow all local and international wildlife regulations. We work with government agencies and independent conservation organizations. We are probably one of the most scrutinized wildlife operations in the world, precisely because we are so public. The transparency you're demanding already exists. You just haven't bothered to look. Well, maybe you should make it more obvious, Joy shot back. Or maybe you should do your homework before accusing someone of exploitation. Robert countered smoothly. This is national television. If you wanted to know about our oversight, that information is publicly available. But you didn't want information. You wanted controversy. And now you're upset that I'm not sitting quietly while you attack me. The audience reacted audibly, split down the middle. Some applauded Robert. Others offered scattered support for Joy. One co-host attempted to de-escalate. Let's take a breath, she said. Emotions are running high. But Joy was not stepping back. Robert, I appreciate your passion, but not everyone is going to celebrate your work uncritically. Some of us have legitimate concerns. Concerns. Robert's voice sharpened. Based on what? Examining my work, or on a gut feeling. Because from where I'm sitting, you haven't presented a single specific example of anything I've done wrong. You've just made broad accusations about wildlife media and applied them to me. That's not legitimate criticism. That's not legitimate criticism. That's lazy thinking. Joy's jaw dropped. Lazy thinking. Are you seriously calling me lazy? I'm calling your argument lazy, Robert clarified. There's a difference. You're clearly intelligent, Joy. Which is why it's frustrating that you came in with such a surface-level take. Wildlife conservation is complex. Media ethics in conservation are complex. But you've reduced it to a soundbite about exploitation and profit. That does a disservice to everyone actually trying to navigate these issues thoughtfully. I don't have to sit here and be lectured by you. Joy shot back, her voice rising. And I don't have to sit here and be slandered by you, Robert said, matching her intensity. But here we are. You started this, Joy. You chose to attack me instead of having a genuine conversation about conservation. Don't act shocked that I'm defending myself. One co-host physically raised her hand, trying to intervene. Okay, let's bring this down. We're going to take a break. No, let's finish this, Joy insisted. Robert, final question. Do you think you're above criticism? Robert met her gaze steadily. Not at all. Legitimate criticism is essential for growth. But what you offered today isn't criticism, cynicism. There's a difference between asking hard questions to understand and improve, and asking hard questions because you enjoy tearing people down.